It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. Making his pre-game pitch, President Trump ups the ante on trade tariffs as he heads off to the Super Bowl. He's due to arrive at the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans shortly, the first sitting president to attend the game. Also tonight, the bishop in charge of safeguarding for the Church of England on her mission to change how allegations of abuse are handled.
We are facing that kind of time of reckoning at the moment, and I think that's right. I understand that there are issues of trust and confidence with the whole church. I have no truck with cover-ups. Things have to come to light.
The Israeli military withdraws from the Netzarim corridor, which cuts Gaza in two, allowing thousands more Palestinians to return to the north of the Gaza Strip. A homecoming many thought was impossible. 5 Thai men, taken hostage by Hamas on October the 7th, are reunited with loved ones in Bangkok. Labour warns there may be more suspensions to come following Health Minister Andrew Gwyn's sacking over offensive WhatsApp messages. A huge shock in the FA Cup as Plymouth knock out the Premier League leaders, Liverpool. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's coming up in our press preview from 10:30. Hello there, good evening. America is braced for its biggest football game of the year, the 59th Super Bowl, which kicks off in about 90 minutes' time. But as the Kansas Chiefs take on the Philadelphia Eagles, Donald Trump is making sure there will be plenty of focus off the field too. In the past half hour, he has landed in New Orleans to become the first sitting president to attend the Super Bowl, and he's announced 25% steel and aluminium tariffs coming tomorrow. He's reiterated commitment as well to the US ownership of Gaza. But let's go live to Washington and our US correspondent Mark Stone. Tonight, the focus then on New Orleans and the Super Bowl, which tonight is making history for all sorts of reasons, Mark, not least the appearance of the US president. But he has been speaking on the plane, tariffs, Gaza, Putin, the list is long.
The list is very long. A flurry of news from President Trump that has just dropped in the last 10 minutes or so. He was flying on Air Force One from Florida across to New Orleans, a route that takes him over the Gulf of Mexico, or is it in fact now the Gulf of America? That is how he announced it, signing an executive order in the presidential office on board Air Force One. One of many different news lines that have emerged in the last 10 minutes. He announced that it was formally being renamed, in his eyes at least, the Gulf of America. We knew this was coming. Now it has come in the form of an executive order. And as he did so, the crew on board Air Force One announced that indeed they were flying over not the Gulf of Mexico, but the Gulf of America. Incidentally, he was asked by a member of the media on board the flight what Mexico had to say about this, and he said that we've never asked Mexico, they've never brought it up, but you can be sure that Mexico will still be referring to it as the Gulf of Mexico. Interestingly, Google has said that once it is officially changed in the US geographical system, they too will change it to the Gulf of America. So big tech there falling into line with Donald Trump. Plenty more other news, but listen to this on the Gulf of America just come into us.
Attention on board. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please direct your attention out the right side of the aircraft. Air Force One is currently in international waters, for the first time in history, flying over the recently renamed Gulf of America. Please enjoy the flight, and we are now about to head westbound to Super Bowl 59.
Wow, he did that well. That's a good shot. He did, isn't that nice? You know, what about make America great again, right? That's what we care about. Okay, here we go.
Now, beyond that, the main headline news that he revealed on board that flight is that this week, tomorrow, he will impose 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminium imports globally. which is dramatic indeed. During his last presidency, Donald Trump imposed tariffs of 25% on steel, 10% on aluminium, but later granted several partners duty-free quotas, and that included the biggest importers of steel into the United States, Canada, Mexico, the EU, and the UK. No longer the case. He says that now 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium will be in place in a new order that he is putting in. So that will have a dramatic impact on countries that import steel. The biggest importers are still Canada and Mexico. It will have a dramatic impact on them. It will also increase the price of steel domestically as well in terms of manufacturers. Briefly on Gaza, he was asked again about whether or not he was committed to owning it. He said yes, he was. He gave no further detail on quite how that would happen, but he did say that sections of Gaza could perhaps be handed over to other countries to help with the rebuilding effort. He said that he is in talks with Putin, wouldn't confirm whether he's actually spoken to him or not, nor indeed will the Kremlin, about Ukraine. And then in a separate interview that he has done with Fox News to coincide with the Super Bowl, there is always a president is always given the option to do a Super Bowl interview. Joe Biden last year famously or infamously decided not to do it, a move that he may have come to regret. Donald Trump has done an interview with Fox News, and he was asked about Elon Musk and the influence Elon Musk has over so many sectors of federal government as he seeks to drive efficiency.
I don't know if it's kickbacks or what's going on, but the people, look, I ran on this, and the people want me to find it. And I've had a great help with Elon Musk, who's been terrific.
Bottom line, you say you trust him.
Trust Elon? Oh, he's not gaining anything. In fact, I wonder how he can devote the time to it. He's so into it. But I told him do that. Then I'm going to tell him very soon, like maybe in 24 hours, to go check the Department of Education. He's going to find the same thing. Then I'm going to go to the military. Let's check the military. We're going to find billions, hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud and abuse.
Yes, and worth noting, Mark, that the Pentagon budget is approaching $1 trillion a year. So we clearly see that's a focus of his. But tonight, of course, it's all about the Super Bowl, expected to arrive any minute now.
Yeah, he will arrive at the stadium for this. I mean, there is no bigger day, no bigger night, no bigger sporting event in America than the Super Bowl. And the fact that a sitting president is here for the first time is significant indeed. The makeup of the stadium, of the people that are in there, is a reflection of America. And I'm intrigued to see what sort of reception he gets when I think he will be on the pitch at one point before the game as well. It will be interesting to see what sort of reception he gets there, because, you know, he won the election. A little over half the country voted for him. There are many people in this country who do not like him and who have been staggered by the past 2 weeks in terms of what he has done, the pledges that he said he would do. He's carrying these pledges through, and so I wonder how a little under half the population of that stadium will react to his presence there. We will see. There'll be eyes on two people, I think. Donald Trump, and then a little behind him, perhaps more interesting for some people, Taylor Swift, of course, will be there as well. Famously, she endorsed Kamala Harris in the election. She was somebody who was quite clear in the end. She was quiet for some time, but in the end was quite clear that she did not want to see a President Trump 2.0. So we'll see if the cameras will be trained on her, as I'm sure they will be in the crowd there. Her reaction to the presence of Donald Trump in the stadium. But look, the news that's come out in the last 15 minutes or so on Gaza, on tariffs, on Putin, on Canada as well. He doubled down that he believes it should be the 51st state of the United States. That Justin Trudeau was heard saying over the past 24 hours that in a private conversation, Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, said that he believed that Donald Trump was serious about Canada becoming the 51st state. Brett Baer on Fox News asked Donald Trump about that, and he said, yes, I am serious. I mean, it's extraordinary stuff. But then, as we have learnt, Anna, from the past couple of weeks, we're in a new world here.
Yeah, it is a truly fascinating ride. Mark, thanks very much indeed. And lots of people will be watching him and the teams as well at the Super Bowl. Prediction of the largest TV audience ever with the Swiftie effect. We heard Mark talk about Taylor Swift, her partner, Travis Kelce, obviously playing for the Kansas City Chiefs. And it is reported, too, that $8 million for 30 seconds is what the ad bill is now for those who want to advertise during the Super Bowl. Trump, the first sitting president to make it to the Super Bowl. Full coverage, of course, coming up on Sky Sports. 11:30 is when that game kicks off. Now, the lead bishop in charge of safeguarding at the scandal-hit Church of England has told Sky News the weight of responsibility on her shoulders keeps her awake at night. Joanne Grenfell, who is the Bishop of Stepney, has been speaking on the eve of a crucial meeting of the Church's General Synod, where she will present her plan to fundamentally change how the Church handles abuse allegations. She's been speaking to our communities correspondent, Lisa Holland.
In an office in East London, Bishop Joanne Grenfell is preparing for a monumental gathering of the scandal-hit Church of England. She is the Church's lead bishop for safeguarding. Next week, she will present a roadmap to fundamentally change how the Church handles abuse allegations.
We are facing that kind of time of reckoning at the moment, and I think that's right. I understand that there are issues of trust and confidence with the whole Church. I have no truck with cover-ups. Things have to come to light.
The General Synod is like a parliament for the Church. It will vote on 2 models proposing an external body to scrutinise safeguarding and possible changes over who manages those who look at complaints.
You're the lead safeguarding bishop for the Church of England. You must feel an enormous responsibility on your shoulders that this has to be got right.
I do feel the weight of that responsibility. I wake up in the middle of the night and I think about the people who hurt because of what we've got wrong.
Jane Chavu is recognised by the Church of England as a survivor of abuse. She's never before spoken on camera about what happened to her.
As a young adult, I was involved in youth assemblies and youth activities in the church and was raped by 2 youth officers. It started when I was 18 and finally ended nearly 10 years later.
Jane runs a survivors support group and sits on a church panel scrutinising safeguarding policies. She believes survivors should be addressing the synod.
I wonder if they're afraid of what we're going to say or afraid that that will have undue influence on the way the vote goes. This is a good step, but it's still a lot of detail to be worked out. And we know how good the Church has been at wriggling out of the things that it's supposed to be doing, and that's been one of the problems.
Last November, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, was forced to step down after a report concluded he could and should have done more in the case of paedophile John Smythe, who for years sexually and physically abused more than 120 boys and young men. The Bishop of Liverpool has just announced his retirement after accusations of sexual assault and harassment were made by 2 women, one a bishop. He denies any wrongdoing.
Do you feel confident that there won't be fresh scandals?
I've learned that you can never be complacent, never say this is a safe church. It's always a church that is trying every day to become safer. And that, you know, we're open to a light being shone into the Church of England to say, what are you doing about safeguarding? Can we trust you? And I want that answer to be yes.
Now the Church must show it's serious about change and really ready to listen and act when allegations are made against it. Lisa Holland, Sky News.
Israeli troops have withdrawn from the Netzarim corridor, a key strip of land separating northern Gaza from the south. Well, as part of the ceasefire agreed last month, Israel agreed to remove its forces from the 4-mile-long corridor, which was used as a military zone during the conflict. The corridor has seen the passage of thousands of Palestinians moving back to their homes in northern Gaza in the last few weeks since that ceasefire came into effect. Well, today's military withdrawal came ahead of the arrival of an Israeli delegation in Doha this evening for talks on the next phase of the Gaza ceasefire. Well, meanwhile, 5 Thai nationals who were released last week after being taken hostage by Hamas on October the 7th have arrived back home. They'd all been working in Israel when they were captured. Just a warning that this report from our international correspondent John Sparks does contain some flash photography.
Dressed in winter jackets, they looked somewhat bewildered as they entered the arrivals hall at the airport in Bangkok. But the delight and the gratitude soon radiated through. 5 Thai men kidnapped by Hamas on October the 7th had spent 16 months in captivity in Gaza. A test of strength they'd managed to survive, these their first moments on home soil. They were soon embraced by the arms and the hands and cheeks of their loved ones, tears falling from disbelieving eyes, a homecoming many thought impossible. The men had traveled to Israel as farm laborers and were victims of a conflict in which they played no part. One of the 5, Ponsak Tana, offered a few words to the media.
We are all very grateful and very happy that we get to return to our homeland. We all would really like to thank you. I don't really know what else to say.
The men were released 10 days ago and flown to a hospital near Tel Aviv. There's one other Thai still unaccounted for. Their government notified the families of all 6 because they didn't know which 5 would be freed. At Suvarnabhumi Airport, the country's foreign minister told the media, "We've never given up. What everybody thought was hopeless has come true today." Driven by poverty, tens of thousands of Thais have found work in Israel as farmhands, and a significant number were caught up in the violence on October 7th. 41 were killed during Hamas's attack, and more than 30 Thai laborers were kidnapped and held captive. The majority were released in November 2023 during a temporary ceasefire in the conflict. 17 men and women on this occasion were able to make the long journey home. And it was time for the 5 Thai men to make the final leg of their journey, the happy culmination to a terrible ordeal. Here are the words of Willis Tenna. His son Ponsak was one of the captives.
I'm very, very glad. I'm so touched. I was so overwhelmed. I was speechless.
Against all odds, their loved ones had returned, and for everybody at the airport, it looked and felt like a miracle. John Sparks, Sky News.
The government has warned it may take action against other MPs and Labour members following the sacking of the Health Minister, Andrew Gwynn. Mr Gwynn also had the party whip withdrawn over anti-Semitic, racist and sexist comments he reportedly made in a WhatsApp group understood to contain several other Labour councillors and party members. Our chief political correspondent, John Craig, has this report.
Boris, I'm sorry to say,
I'm so sorry. Go on.
Don't be a pillock.
Come on.
Andrew Gwynn doing battle on Sky News in 2017 with Boris Johnson, who called him a big girl's blouse. Then he was Jeremy Corbyn's campaign chief, and until this weekend, he was a health minister under Sir Keir Starmer. Now he's out the door, sacked from his government job and suspended from the Labour Party. Mr Gwynn, MP for Gorton and Denton on the outskirts of Manchester, responded to messages between a 72-year-old resident and a Labour councillor about bin collections. In an abusive suggested reply, Mr Gwynn wrote, "I'm re-elected and without your vote. Hopefully you'll have croaked it by the all-outs," meaning council elections. In another, he insulted a resident campaigning for more cycle lanes, writing, "I had positive visions of him getting mown down while he's cycling. We couldn't be that lucky." The Mail on Sunday reported that Mr Gwynne also made an anti-Semitic comment about an American academic, asking if he was too Jewish. He made a lewd sexist joke about Angela Rayner, and he mocked Diane Abbott when she stood in for Mr Corbyn at Prime Minister's questions. Labour ministers said Sir Keir had acted swiftly and decisively.
The comments that Andrew Gwynne made, let's be clear, are completely unacceptable. And the Prime Minister has been very clear from day one of this Labour government that he is determined to uphold the highest standards of public office.
Senior Tories said Mr Gwynne's comments were nasty.
I think what's actually more sinister is that in one of Mr Gwynne's tweets he refers to a constituent as being too Jewish. And that really does suggest that just beneath the surface, between all the sort of the window dressing that Keir Starmer's done, that with senior Labour politicians, there may still be a very serious problem with anti-Semitism.
In his constituency, there was shock and surprise.
I think it's awful, and I'm glad that something's been done about it.
To be racist and misogynistic and stuff like that, you've got to face the consequences.
You wouldn't really think he'd be making those kind of comments about other people.
Mr Gwynne is the third minister to lose their job in the past 3 months, after Louise Haigh and Tulip Sadiq. What will have particularly incensed Sir Keir Starmer will be his anti-Semitic comments. Mr Gwynne has apologised for what he says were badly misjudged comments, but it's difficult to see a way back for him now. John Craig, Sky News.
Well, John joins me live now from Westminster. What's his future looking like then, John?
Bleak, because there are calls from political opponents locally in his constituency in the greater Manchester and northwest of England for him to face not only a police investigation, no response yet from Greater Manchester Police, but also for him to quit as a Member of Parliament. Now, while all this is going on, the government is hoping to shift the agenda onto its crackdown on immigration, illegal immigration, that is. Now, here we've got the second reading of the government's flagship immigration legislation. That's the Border Control, Asylum and Immigration Bill. Now, as you might expect, there are amendments down, not just from the Conservatives, but from Nigel Farage's Reform UK. And on top of that, in what is seen as a big fight back by Labour against the surge in support for Mr Farage and Reform UK, the government's planning a big publicity blitz, starting with hard-hitting video showing border control officers doing raids on everything from cafes to nail bars to barber shops and so on. And then later we're expecting at some point to see another video of people being deported on planes, boarding planes, charter flights, being sent back and deported. And it's reported that Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, will actually take part in a raid by Border Force officials. All this to try and convince voters that the government is really tackling the immigration problem, the illegal immigration problem. The Tories complain that they're not tackling the legal migration problem. They propose an amendment to make it harder for people who are here to get citizenship. And of course, there's always the spectre of Mr Farage, who's now weighing heavily on both big parties, the Conservatives and Labour. We've seen a much tougher attitude and a tougher response to reform from Sir Keir Starmer and Labour in recent days. And over the next 24 hours, we're going to see much more of that, with not only the debate in Parliament, a showdown between the government and the opposition parties, but also this really hard-hitting propaganda publicity blitz, if you like, including videos and high-profile visits by the Home Secretary and a big blitz on deportation raids and putting people on flights to get them out.
Interesting. John Craig, thanks very much indeed. You mentioned Nigel Farage there. Reform UK today announcing that its party membership has now exceeded 200,000. That announcement coming at the end of a week that saw the party top a Sky News YouGov poll for the first time. It found 1 in 5 who voted Conservative in the last election would now vote for reform. Well, speaking at a conference in Wiltshire earlier, the party's leader, Nigel Farage, said the party would now aim to overtake Labour's membership.
That message will say, as I leave this stage, it'll change, and it will say that the Labour Party have 309,000 members, and when we overtake them, we will be the biggest political party in this country. That's our goal, that's our aim, that's our target.
Now, some upsets to come in the world of sport, or came rather. Let's get the details. Here's Dave.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
I've had a wonderful career in football, but now I want to give something back. I want to help our game's young players.
Whether you do or don't make it, you're prepared for life itself.
One player makes it, then I've done my job.
This time I'm looking at other ways we can support our younger footballers.
I still have them dreams that normal parents have.
It's exciting to know that you've got a child who actually has a love for something and wants to pursue it.
Have you not owned it yet?
No.
Southampton's academy has an incredible record of producing talent. And one of the biggest success stories has recently rejoined the club. But could there be another Adam Lallana making his name in red and white in the future?
I'm just like a normal parent. I'm excited that my lad's in the system. I'm probably more excited watching his games than I'm playing my games now.
I'm a very fortunate parent that I have support as well. So when I can't take Arthur, I've got, whether it's my wife or grandparents, and I know a lot of parents, don't have access to that, aren't able to get the time off work. So it can become stressful for the parents. When parents become stressed, at times they won't know they're doing it, but they put more pressure on the kids. There's an external pressure of making it professionally, which is extremely unrealistic. The football club do a lot to help parents, giving them money per mile for the travelling, and that should happen. There probably should be even more in place, because it only takes one big sale from a youth team player, whether it's Theo or Foxo Chamberlain eventually going, that contributes to every other player that hasn't made it. They can be damaged. When Jurgen Klopp told me there wasn't going to be a contract at Liverpool and I need to find another club, I was distraught for a week.
Even at that age, with all what you've done?
With all that I'd done, with all the success I'd had, that feeling that I had, I remember for the next week of rejection. It was the right thing. I knew there wasn't going to be a contract, but him actually saying to me, there's not going to be a contract, you need to find another club. I remember just how I slept the next week. It was tough. Imagine what these young boys that it's their dream to become professional.
What advice would you have to the parents who have these youngsters who are going through the system?
So just because I'm a player and I've played, I still have them dreams that normal parents have. It's so important that we don't pass that pressure on to our kids, whether it's a young girl or a young boy in the academy. I was so lucky. I never felt an ounce of pressure growing up from my parents, not an ounce. There was never, ever any pressure to perform, to play, to be a professional. I always kind of had to find that myself. If you want to be a professional, you'll learn in the end what you need to do. I'm like a normal parent, but if I've had a bad day or a bad training session myself and then I come and watch my lad, I talk to myself and I say, don't take it out on him today. Don't, if he has a bad session, say, what you're not doing this for, what you're doing that for. I kind of say to myself, when he gets in the car, did you enjoy that today?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it? Did you have fun? Did you work hard? The pressure's coming. If you're going to make it as a professional, it is coming. It's tough at times, so we don't want the kids feeling it prematurely.
I wanted to hear a bit more.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
So Donald Trump, as you know, is due to be the first sitting president to attend a Super Bowl. He's on the pitch, as they say. Let's take you to New Orleans then, shall we? The Caesars Superdome, capacity 83,000. There he goes. Certainly a huge audience, expected possibly to be the biggest ever because of the Swiftie effect. Taylor Swift there to support her boyfriend, who clearly plays for the Kansas City Chiefs. Just getting these pictures in, so clearly some of his minders trying to keep people out the way to allow the TV cameras to see. So just bear with us. Looks like his daughter is there. I spotted one grandson as well, certainly in the Beast when he landed at the airfield in New Orleans, flying in from Florida. They suggest $8 million for a 30-second advert is what the price is now. The Chiefs are going for what they called a three-peat, 3 times win, never been done before either. So there's multiple reasons why they think this might be a record-breaking Superdome as he poses for pictures. Not the greatest pictures, as you can see, as they move around. But it looks like those are the first responders, I'm guessing, who were there. Big security, clearly, in New Orleans. Certainly in a statement that he gave, Donald Trump did pay tribute to those who were killed in the recent terror attack in the city. And, you know, may the best team win, is what he said. The guess is he's supporting the Chiefs. Because he likes to win. Has he got more than one grandchild there? Just trying to see, in fact. There we go, latest pictures of Donald Trump. Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. Tonight, joined by the political commentator, Tim Montgomery, and the political correspondent of Politics Joe, Ava Santina Evans. Great to see both of you. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Among the stories, we will be discussing this on the front of the Financial Times. The headline, US and China set for a trade war as Beijing launches its retaliatory tariffs. That and plenty more, of course, when we come back.
Once almost lost, these denizens of the deep are back.
The problem for these whales is global warming. Water temperatures are rising.
We're worried that the animals are actually starting to starve.
Deadly and outdated. What do you think should happen to the nets?
I would like to see them go.
I'm Nicole Johnston, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Beijing.
A towering monument to the China dream and its demise.
From one end of this country to the other, China is littered with real estate that's falling apart.
China is facing a tsunami of the elderly.
We have to work as long as health allows, otherwise, no money.
China is under pressure to pay for the pensions of 500 million retirees. I've reported on a wide range of stories from around the world.
Mass protests forced the president to flee.
The sight of the president's private swimming pool only reinforces to Sri Lankans the great divide here between rich and poor.
Aid groups say Gaza is now the world's most dangerous place to be a child.
The Israeli army has raided towns and villages all over the West Bank.
These tunnels run all over Gaza. The Gaza Strip is ridden with them. A referendum designed to unite the country has only deepened its divide.
Sydney's floodplains underwater again.
This is the 3rd or 4th time in 18 months that their homes have gone under.
Sky News, the full story first.
It may seem like a gimmicky toy, but it is part of the global race between the United States and China for new technology. This elite engineering, designed to humour and to help us.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests. Will the cold affect to your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support.
Free, wherever you get your news.
The people here know that worse storms may well be on their way.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.
Mandatory evacuation, you must leave!
For many people, Harvey is far from over.
People here believe the water will be this deep for weeks.
I'm Greg Milam and I'm Sky's chief North of England correspondent.
Are you trying to run me over, Sir Philip?
No, go away.
Look like it, sir. Will you respond to those who made accusations, Sir Philip?
Can you go away?
Sky News, the full story first.
Well, this is Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. First, a reminder of our top stories. President Trump is the first sitting president to attend tonight's Super Bowl game in New Orleans. The bishop in charge of safeguarding for the Church of England acknowledges that there are issues of trust and confidence in the church ahead of tomorrow's General Synod meeting. And the Israeli military has withdrawn from the Netzarim corridor, which divides Gaza, allowing Palestinians to return to the northern part of the Gaza Strip as part of the ceasefire deal. Well, hello there. You're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. In the next half hour, then, we'll see what's making the headlines with the political commentator, Tim Montgomery, and the politics correspondent at Politics Joe, Ava Evans. Welcome and lovely to see both of you. So, to the front pages, then, let us start with the Financial Times, which says China and the US are facing the prospect of a full-blown trade war as retaliatory Chinese tariffs on $14 billion worth of American exports came into effect today. The Metro reports that every member of a WhatsApp group could face punishment after Andrew Gwynn was sacked as health minister for posting vile comments to the chat. Labour will set out plans to reduce legal immigration ahead of local elections in May to counter the threat from Nigel Farage's Reform UK party. That is according to The Eye. The Telegraph features an image of Sir Keir Starmer missing a penalty, but leads with claims an Albanian criminal was allowed to stay in Britain, partly because his son will not eat foreign chicken nuggets. That image of the Prime Minister with his head in his hands is also on the front page of The Times. Their main story says businesses have cut jobs or slowed recruitment at levels not seen in more than a decade because of tax rises following the budget back in the autumn. The Guardian leading with a former diplomat claiming Britain's system for controlling arms exports is broken, subject to political manipulation and conduct that crossed the threshold into complicity with war crimes. A farmer's plea for an inheritance tax U-turn features on the front of the Express. The Daily Star says Sir Keir Starmer has been branded a hypocrite for spending £700,000 on air travel after he mocked Rishi Sunak's helicopter expenses. Well, plenty to get our teeth into there, certainly. Tim, Ava, great to see both of you. Shall we kick off with tariffs? Ava, this comes after Donald Trump only tonight, on his way to the Super Bowl, started talking about steel and aluminium tariffs. But this is the China-US part of that, is it not?
Yeah, so China had been in Lunar New Year for the past week, so they've been rather quiet while these tariffs were announced, and now they've come back very strong over the last 24 hours, and they've announced £14 billion of American goods that will be targeted by their tax in retaliation, similar to actually how Canada responded. So we might have the same situation that we had a couple of days ago, where Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump jumped on a call and then they sorted it all out and smoothed it over. Maybe that's what will happen with China. But, look, Rachel Reeves is going to have quite the headache waking up tomorrow morning, because not only is she waking up to this story about 25% on steel tariffs, but, the way that this works with China is that a lot of that Chinese steel, if they're not going to sell it to America, a lot of that will then be dumped into the UK market, and that will liquidate our market, and that will be very difficult for sellers of steel in our country. So quite the headache for her, I imagine.
Yeah. Another headache for the Chancellor. If I was on with you last week, I would have been very anxious about what Donald Trump was doing, because the fact that he was taking action against a key ally, Canada stood with America during, some of the worst times America has faced. And I regret that. I'm glad they were able to, in that phone call, put it right, or at least temporarily. The trouble with the scattergun approach that I think Donald Trump is pursuing is when he does something that is important and actually has a good case for it, like against China, I think it gets lost. Because there has been a big bet that the world made on China. We thought as China got richer, like most countries, would become more democratic and more liberal. In fact, it's used its wealth to become an even more of a totalitarian state. And so one of the big calls I think Donald Trump has got right in his time as president is to say we are going to put a stop to a deeper and deeper relationship with China. So there are economic implications of the kind just mentioned, but overall, this is one of the things that the world has been far too slow to do. China is a totalitarian regime. I don't know why Britain under Labour is beginning to cuddle up to it.
But it's also the world's manufacturing location, isn't it? That's
the
point. And we import. It's hard not to buy something that's Chinese if you're in Britain, to be fair.
It is
so
hard.
Are you trying to stop that? And if so, who's going to produce those goods and what price would they be?
Well, you know, it also has some of the most valuable minerals that our technology depends upon. But you know, during COVID, do you remember we were having a debate about whether we should be reliant on China for essential medical supplies? I think what we might be beginning to see, and actually I welcome this, is, you know, since the Ukraine war, Russia has sort of had an internal market with others despots. And I think the democracies need to start trading in a similar fashion as well, on those things that are as essential as, you know, like medical supplies, certainly military and technology. And of course, you're right. China is the major manufacturer in the world. We can't live without everything they produce. But that doesn't mean that we don't help them become richer, more technologically sophisticated, and, you know, take military supremacy in the world.
Yeah, well, we know that Donald Trump has Europe in its sights next for tariff. The announcement that he made on the plane, which, let's bear in mind, he flew over the Gulf of Mexico, thereby naming it Gulf of America Day. Today is Gulf of America Day, people, and they had a fanfare on the plane, did they not, with a map literally saying Gulf of America. But the big news from that was that he will be announcing 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminium imports into the US. Here's the moment, and there's the map, as you can see, signing the order. It's got loads of sweets, hasn't it?
He's
anyway,
looking very orange, very orange.
Very small in that chair.
Yes, that's true.
Do you think he needs to sit up? Anyway, he needs a booster. No, I don't think he's very tall already.
You need to become his advisor and correct him.
But anyway, the pilot, you know, announced that it was Gulf of America, as you can see. There we go, and there's the applause. So, you know, but this is the chaff that's thrown out. Is it to hide? This should be a question. To hide some of the other stuff? I don't know, but there we go. Writing the order on the flight on his way to the Super Bowl. Anyway, 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium. This is the building blocks of the manufacturing industry we were talking about there. This again is big stuff from him, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it would be interesting as well to see steel back on the agenda for the UK, because for the last couple of years there's been a big fight around, well, Grangemouth up in Scotland and also Port Talbot, the steelworks over in Wales, and those two big, titans of industry, they're going to be closed down in the next couple of years. So there'll be a conversation about perhaps whether our steel workers, we should actually bring back British steel. We actually make the best steel in the world. Do you know that? We did. We make a diamond product. But, you know, what you had to say there about China and, you know, the way that we're importing from them, I do think we should be having a conversation about our spending habits and how they changed after the pandemic and the sort of rubbish that we have been importing because of this, sorry, not to get on my high horse, but this sort of mass consumption.
We buy too much stuff.
We do. We buy
because we have growth driven by consumerism, and that's part of the problem, isn't it, in some respects?
And we know about the Uyghurs, the Muslim minority in China, but actually some of the stories, for example, from how Apple products, many of them produced in China, some of the human rights conditions of those, no, they're not slave labour, but their pay is very poor, the working conditions are very different from what we'd accept here. And China is using the wealth that it gains from these products to build a military and a technological base that one day might mean they have the upper hand in the world. They'll be able to dominate their region, at least. So these are difficult times. You're right to ask those questions about we're so dependent upon them. But do we really want the most powerful nation in the world to be enriched by us and to be totalitarian? Because that's the trajectory we're on. So, yes, I think we all know that Donald Trump doesn't get everything right. But I think this big call of his, even if the mechanism is a bit suspect, and yes, we shouldn't be targeting China and Europe, But this particular policy is a good one, I think.
OK. And in the meantime, The Telegraph points out that in this country we're between a rock and a hard place, or elements of hypocrisy, that we'd be willing to change hard-fought-over laws incoming in order to avoid tariffs then. What's this one then, Ava?
So just before that, I'll say, we've got to remember that President Trump, he actually overturned a ban on TikTok. That was one of the first things that he did when he became president. And that links right in with China, because TikTok is essentially gathering all of our data, and that was the concerns that a number of congressmen raised, and Trump didn't seem too bothered about that. So it's interesting that he's worried about, physical products that can be imported into the country, but not so much the data collection. But this story...
On platforms he can be on, I suppose.
Well, that's why shamelessly he said it got me votes, so he changed his view.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. But this story in the front of the Telegraph, so this is about the online safety bill and about how there's been sort of an attempt to curb what social media companies can and can't do with, can and cannot provide to people's children. And this is working concurrently with a number of parents in the UK who are actually going to take TikTok to court over harms that their children, experienced, and they say directly were correlated to some of the social media sites. Now that Trump has brought Elon Musk, who is the owner of the big website X, or Twitter, as it was formerly known, now that he is one of his advisors, there is a suggestion that perhaps some of these safety measures might have to be watered down in order to appease Trump and his friend Musk.
Yeah.
Well, you won't get any disagreement, I think, from me on that. I think the political party that first grasps the nettle of what we're putting before our children on a not just a daily but hourly basis, I think will get a big dividend from voters. We know that China doesn't put the same algorithms to its own children as it exposes to ours. We know that some of the key executives in Silicon Valley don't let their children use the technologies that their companies are profiting from. And I think standing up, I probably shouldn't give advice to Keir Starmer, and you'd probably ignore it anyway, but standing up to these tech giants and what the poison they're putting before our children, I think the first party that's serious about this will get a deserved electoral dividend. So this is completely the opposite direction to the way I think we should be going.
Absolutely.
Yes, right, let's move on to the Metro. This is the MP, ex-minister, I should say, Andrew Gwynn has been fired. There's an update, in fact, and I know you've spoken to the aide of the MP involved. It's on the front page of the Mail as well. So who is the other MP? Because he's just actually issued a statement. This is Oliver Ryan, who says, between 2019 and early 2022, I was a member of a WhatsApp group created by my MP and former employer, Andrew Gwynn. Some of the comments made in that group were completely unacceptable, and I fully condemn them. I regret not speaking out at the time, and I recognise that failing to do so was wrong. I did not see every message, but I accept responsibility for not being more proactive in challenging what was said. I also made some comments myself, which I deeply regret and would not make today, and for that I wholeheartedly apologise. I will cooperate fully with the Labour Party's investigation. So this is a second MP with the suggestion that the Labour Party might come down hard on other people who were in this WhatsApp group, who's already scalped, effectively, Andrew Gwynn from that ministerial role.
It's very interesting, because the source that I spoke to said that the Oliver Ryan hadn't actually spoken in that WhatsApp group, but I suppose you'd like to get ahead of the story. Look, so this is obviously the story about the former Health Minister, Andrew Gwynn, and this WhatsApp conversation he was involved in around the time of the election, and he made some, I think, disparaging comments about a woman who had asked about her local bin collection, and he suggested that he would quite like her to die before the next election, so he wouldn't have to rely on her vote. But there have been a number of other messages that have emerged from this WhatsApp group, some of them potentially anti-Semitic, some of them racist, some of them potentially misogynist. And there is a question not only about the judgment of someone like Andrew Gwynn, who's a rather senior figure on the Labour right, about the sort of messages he was sharing with this rather large WhatsApp group. I mean, there's a real lack of judgment there, because if you're going to...
Do you know how many people approximately were on it?
Well, a significant number. And, if you're going to share something like that, you at least do it with your tightest confidants. But there's this other side of it.
Yeah, we're going to show the Mail now as well while you're talking. Just, no, do continue.
Well, there's the other side of this story, which is why weren't the activists calling out the behaviour? Because if there were anti-Semitic comments being made in there, there's a real question about whether Labour has actually resolved its issue with anti-Semitism.
Does it look like somebody from that WhatsApp group has called it out? Is that that what?
Must
or
be,
was it taken so
thought.
long? 'Cause some of them date from 2019, as we know.
So the route that this made the papers that I understand is that this is a group of a couple of local councillors who actually leaked the messages, who were present on the WhatsApp group. That's how I understand it. And they are, well, the Telegraph has written it up that they are of the Labour left, and so this is factional. You could make an argument that perhaps there was a morality point here.
Yeah, it might just be decent people who didn't like what he was saying.
Tim, we're well over because Donald Trump arrived, etc., etc. But one sentence about this, or do you want to do it? Wait.
Well, clearly taking the right decision, but can of worms. How many other WhatsApp groups are out there with these sort of messages?
Yeah.
I hope
people
not.
feel like
really.
they can be honest. It's like the catty element of how people speak, isn't it, sometimes? OK, lots more to come on that and more, including a farmer's plea for an inheritance tax U-turn. Not the first time they've made this point, to be fair. Back in a moment.
I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Brussels. I've witnessed migration across Europe close up.
I'm James Matthews and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Washington, D.C. Mr. Musk, has your ignorance and ego cost Ukrainian lives? Free, wherever you get your news.
I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
Why do you support Vladimir Putin, Mr. Seagal?
I'm Conor Gillis, Sky's Scotland correspondent. Sky News, the full story first.
We're going to do this 100 times every day for the next 3 months.
Why have we agreed to this?
Raises many questions about many things.
Actually seeing people impacted, she was so upset.
It was powerful. They kind of couldn't believe they were being berated here.
Very much on my terms, I think was the subtext. News happens fast around Donald Trump.
It was a kind of wow moment.
Yeah, that's what it feels like, doesn't it?
It's Trump world, and we just live in it.
So, where next?
Follow Trump 100 wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Alistair Bunkle, Sky's Middle East correspondent based here in Jerusalem.
The only way into Gaza for us right now is with the Israeli military.
We've just reached the center of Khan Yunis.
The IDF had brought us in to show us a tunnel network under a residential neighborhood.
At the end of the day, it's war up the top. It's war down here.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Mandatory evacuation, you must leave!
For many people, Harvey is far from over.
People here believe the water will be this deep for weeks.
I'm Greg Milam and I'm Sky's Chief North of England correspondent.
Are you trying to run me over, Sir Philip?
No, go away.
Look like it, sir. Will you respond to those who made accusations, Sir Philip?
Can you go away?
Sky News, the full story first.
Well, welcome back. You are watching the press preview. With me once again, Tim Montgomery and Ava Santina-Evans. Welcome back to both of you. Daily Express, please don't destroy historic family farms. This is a message the Express is not letting go of, Tim.
No, I think they might have referred to this once or twice before. Obviously, not a Diana Day today, so they're doing something different. But, you know, it is not an issue that's going to go away. And actually talking to farmers in Wiltshire over the weekend, where I live, you know, it could get really serious because the farmers really don't think the government is listening to them. Now, you might disagree with the farmers' complaint, but if the farmers now think that they're getting no way by peaceful protest or these tractors clogging up Whitehall, then they start to sort of restrict in some way food supplies to supermarkets. You know, remember how Labour became so unpopular the first time in Blair's time with fuel protests, which stopped fuel getting to the petrol stations. Now, food is quite important too. And I think if there's supermarkets which rely on just-in-time delivery systems, you know, hour by hour they need things delivered promptly, this could become an issue that's on just the front page of the Express to the front page of every single newspaper.
Yeah, I remember that very well. Sky had a live how to find petrol in different fuel stations, I seem to remember at the time of that one. In the meantime, let's talk...
We're both showing our age.
Yes, no, exactly. Let's talk chicken nuggets in the context of the Borders Bill and what happens this week in terms of toughening up migration coming in. But what's this story about in the Telegraph?
This is a story the Home Office won't want because they are announcing that this huge number of arrests that they have made of illegal, well, quote-unquote, illegal immigrants. But this is about an Albanian criminal who has won his case to stay in the UK because his son won't eat chicken nuggets in any other country apart from the United Kingdom. I mean, you might believe it. I might think this is a little bit of a fabrication because there is no way that a court ordered that someone could stay based off the back of this.
There's an expression in newspapers called too good to check, which is that you just love the story so much you want to write it anyway. And I'm afraid this story does have a ring of that to me. It'll stay in people's imagination, though, the idea that people can't be extradited because of our quality of our chicken nuggets. It can't be true. But the Telegraph have put it on the front page.
It's a little bit too neat, isn't it, with Robert Jenrick as well, who wants to pull us out the ECHR, and he's saying that the reason he's allowed to stay is because the ECHR gives you the right to a family life, and that's why he can't be separated from his chicken nugget-eating son.
Golly.
I think this might say more about the Telegraph than our immigration system, but that's a bit naughty, isn't it?
OK, right. We will talk more. We'll see you for more at 11:30. Both of you, thank you very much indeed. Our coverage continues. Some extraordinary pronouncements from Donald Trump on the flight as he headed over what he called the Gulf of America from Florida to New Orleans. He's there for tonight's Super Bowl. Threatens to escalate international trade war. 25% tariffs now on steel and aluminium. The first sitting president ever to go to a Super Bowl. More coverage coming up in a few minutes' time.
I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support.
Free, wherever you get your news. The people here know that worse storms may well be on their way. I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.
Weeknights on Sky News.
This is your chance. Tell people. Welcome to the Politics Hub.
Our police force has apologised. If you want to find out about Grimsby, you come to the docks.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Are you not concerned that that could lead to all-out war?
Hello there, good evening. There are fears of an upsurge in violence. What's at stake here?
You are watching the press preview, a first look at the front pages as they arrive.